what would you say are your top 3 tips for lifelong learners? I was going to ask initially about, do you think it's ever too early to start really learning these things? But clearly you agree with me and feel like it's never too early. You get people started right now. Doesn't matter how old they are. Get them proud of who they are right now, the present. But what would you say for the people who are in the present and who are still learning? What are your top 3 tips for them?
So if you are, I think, again, going with who. So if you are like an educator or in the education field, I would say the first and foremost tip that I would say is how might we create a classroom environment that amplifies strengths? So make that as an area of exploration, from your lesson plan to how your classroom is arranged, to how you design the interactions within students, to how you interact with one-on-one students. How might you as a teacher amplify that strengths within the classroom setting? And then if you're a parent, like me, one of the things that really served me, and that was also, I would say, challenging at first, was understanding my own boundaries. I remember the first time that I told my kids, "Mommy is not available right now." That was monumental for me. They were 5 and 8-year-olds who, for the most part of their lives, from when they were born up until they're 5 and 8, always thought that if they have ideas, they have something to say, mommy is the go-to person, and they'll barge in, but holding on to that idea of helping kids understand boundaries by me setting my boundaries was one of the pivotal moments in my parenting life, because that's when I practice what I'm preaching to my kids. How would they know boundaries if they don't see it, if it's not modeled for them? So it came into, practicing. When you have something to say and mommy's doing something, you ask, "Mommy, are you available right now?" And that's part of the attunement. That's part of understanding that my needs are my needs, and there are also other people who have their needs. So boundary setting for me as a parent has been very instrumental in understanding how can I best be a parent to this, to these human beings, amazing human beings. And for them to also understand that as a human being myself, I have boundaries that I need to preserve and to put, even if, they're my children. Actually, it's especially since they're my children, that they need to learn those boundaries. And then if you are, if you're more in the entrepreneurial space, doing your business, the third tip would, how can you start with who in the things that you're doing? Who are we designing this for? Who are we building this community for? Who is this program for? And as we explore the who, we'll get into exploring what's going on in their lives. That is crucial. What are the strengths that they bring in? What are the assets that they inherently have within themselves and outside of themselves? And that's a lot of information that you can already start with.
Yeah, I love these. I love how specific they are, because usually when we say top 3 tips, we'd expect something that is super generic that everybody on the planet can implement. But the fact that you've started with who makes it so relevant and so practical and so applicable. It's almost like an action plan that is catered just for you individually. So I love that.
Creating
I
the
think
setting.
it's time now.
And
so go ahead, Paul.
Yeah, sorry. So it was creating the setting that maximizes that learning. It was setting those boundaries so that you can really be involved in that process when you are involved in that process, and then starting with that who. Those are really, really essential. Alexandra, I believe you were
And what
about
you said
to...
about parents,
Mm.
yeah, I was about, but then I remembered something else. What you said about boundaries, and reminded me what you said initially about the fact that parents, children are not extensions of parents. And since you brought Rumi, I'm trying to connect the dots here. And
Yes.
since you brought Rumi, it reminded me of Gibran Khalil Gibran's quote, which is, "Your children are not your children. They are the sons and daughters of life's longing for itself." And I think this is quite a poetic expression of the fact that there are boundaries, that individuality is important, and that the surrender to the inner self, to be self-full, is part of life's longing for itself. I think it kind of complements the discussion that we've had. So another tangential kind of moment. I think it's
Alexandra.
Yes.
And if I can add last bit of, is to go with, do it with love. And by love, I go with, I go with the definition of Leo Buscaglia. His definition is, love is the process of me leading you gently back to yourself. But if I do it with love, I'm in this process with you of leading you to your self-fullness. And that's the framing that, if we do it as teachers, as parents, as entrepreneurs, if we do it with love, then it's all of us, leading us gently back to ourselves.
That's a powerful definition.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. And it's quite expressive of something that we all need, which is to go back to ourselves. But it's also expressive of how it is possible to do that. And I would dig a bit deeper and say that there are two parts of it. And that the first part is not somebody else's love for you, but your love for yourself, the self-esteem, the self-appreciation that you eventually nurture. And this is how you come to realize that it is with love that you need to go back to yourself as well. And I think this is something that is not often talked about. And this is essential. This is the fundamental piece before anything else eventually is built upon it. I'm not sure if I'm going to risk another I think, because every time I think, another thought comes in, which is amazing, because this is what discussions, conversations don't have to be neat and perfect and structured. Sometimes there's an overlap. We have thoughts, we need to share them, and that's the beauty of it.
Yeah. And connecting those dots is just such an important part of that process.
Yes. Connecting the dots is my middle name. Well, not exactly my middle name, but my motto in life.